All right, everyone. This episode's going to be a little bit different. Chus is not here today, but it's Bengals versus Steelers week, so we had to do something. So let's kick it off right now. What's up, everyone? It is Josh here from No Butts About It. If you are on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. If you're not and you're listening to it later, just a heads up, this is being live streamed on YouTube. So if I start talking about commenters and you're like, what is he talking about? That's what I'm talking about. If someone comments, yeah, that's who I'm referring to. All right. So full disclosure, we're planning on recording yesterday, and someone slept in. I slept in, and so me and Chus weren't able to record. That is one of the hazards of working nights. Sometimes you oversleep during the daytime when you're supposed to be doing other things. So that is an unfortunate reality. However, I wanted, hop on, still have a little conversation. Maybe we'll reach an hour. Maybe we won't. We will see what happens. But alas, tonight is the matchup, the rivalry, the one of the biggest rivalries in all of sports between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers, the dreaded Pittsburgh Steelers, as I will be referring to them as, because Just isn't here and he can't stop me. But what we do know tonight, unfortunately, is that Trey Hendrickson is very likely to miss tonight's game. He got injured versus the Packers, and originally it was called a back injury. And then the Bengals injury report came out, and it was called a hip injury. He was questionable with a hip injury. So I don't really know how that kind of happened. Maybe initially they thought it was something with his back, and then they realized it was more isolated to his hip. I don't know. But the point being is Trey will not be out there today. And that is important because obviously one of the narratives we've had all season and into the offseason was that the Bengals don't really have a pass rush beyond Trey Hendrickson. But on the other side of that coin, the Bengals are getting Shamar Stewart back, who is the former or this year's first round pick with the Cincinnati Bengals. Someone who came in and the Bengals saw a ton of potential in. There was a ton of offseason drama. He's missed the last few games with an ankle injury, and he will be playing tonight. And Al Golden, the Bengals defensive coordinator, seemed to indicate that he expected a lot of Shamar Stewart. And I don't know if that's because he knew that, Trey wasn't likely to be playing, even though they gave him that questionable designation or what, but he's expecting a lot out of Shamar Stewart tonight. And honestly, as fans, so are we. So on the Steelers side of things, safety Deshaun Elliott, he has been upgraded. I believe he was questionable at one point. He has now made the trip to Cincinnati. He didn't make it with the team on Wednesday. He just arrived today about an hour ago, I believe. Ian Rappaport said he was there. He was dealing with a personal matter as well. Calvin Austin III will not be playing. He's had a shoulder injury that he suffered against the Vikings in Week 4. So he missed last week's game against the Browns as well. And then one of the special teams captain, or maybe the special teams captain, I actually don't know, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, Miles Killebrew, he was ruled out as well after he suffered an injury versus the Browns. So the Bengals, I guess I should go over all the Bengals injuries while we're here. I believe Dylan Fairchild will play. Mike Gesicki is out. Trey Hendrickson, we just talked about, is out. BJ Hill does not currently have an injury designation. It looks like he was just rusting. Tanner Hudson, I know, is out with a concussion. Charlie Jones was questionable. Amarius Mims was questionable, but has full practice. Same with Lucas Patrick, and then Shamar Stewart, we know, is going to play. So the Bengals will be hurting in that tight end room. which, honestly, I wasn't really expecting the tight ends to have a lot of play, like making a huge difference during this game, especially because the Steelers have such a deep linebacker room. The Steelers as a defense have very consistently had some of the best linebackers in the NFL and some of the best linebacker depth in the NFL. I mean, if you think about it, even beyond TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, you still have guys like Jack Sawyer, who is just like an absolute beast. I loved it I didn't love it when the Steelers drafted him, but I was very high on him when the Steelers drafted him. They have Patrick Queen. They have Peyton Wilson, Nick Herbig. Even Carson Bruner's been making some plays for the Steelers. So they have a very deep linebacker room. So that defense is going to be the key here. Before we get over to the Bengals offense, let's talk about the Steelers defense. So that defensive line, it's something me and Chuss have talked about a lot on the show. They've got Derek Harmon back after he missed the first few games with an injury that he suffered during, I believe, the first preseason game. He's been playing these last few weeks. So he's got some snaps under his belt. We're looking at getting him started. It's going to hurt the Bengals in the run game, frankly. And that's something that they have struggled with at all. And now they have to go up against Cameron Hayward, Derek Harmon, Keanu Benton, some of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. I do not expect the run game to be a huge part of tonight's game. Not only because that's where the Bengals have been going just in general, but also just the way this Steelers defense is set up to have those linebackers and that D-line. You're going to have to go beyond that. You're going to have to target behind that. So they're going to have to put the ball in Joe Flacco's hands a lot. And again, that's not an easy task tonight at all. They have Darius Slay. I believe Juwan Thornhill will be playing tonight. Deshaun Elliott, we just talked about, will be playing. Joey Porter Jr. and Jalen Ramsey. That secondary, when they are unified and a cohesive unit, they can be very, very scary. And they're going to be very hard to go up against. I had originally, we're talking to the beginning of the year, Joe Burrow's in. I had a lot of faith in this team. I thought that, hey, they are going to, they're going to challenge these teams. They're going to put in a lot of effort against a lot of these teams. But now I'm going into these games kind of scared. And it's not even so much what the other teams are doing. It's what the Bengals are doing to themselves. So let's talk about that a little bit. Okay, so the first major, move the Bengals have made in a long time, kind of shocked the world, that I did not expect. So they went and got Joe Flacco. It was in the media all last week leading up to the game. Joe Flacco was traded to the Cincinnati Bengals. Mike Tomlin said he didn't understand the move. He didn't understand why the Browns would help out the Cincinnati Bengals and trade them a quarterback that they thought was good enough to be their day one starter, which is a fair point. It was kind of shocking. That type of thing doesn't happen a lot. However, the fact is, it did happen. And so we come into the Green Bay game. There was something special. There was something special the fans were feeling. There was this hope, this optimism. Joe Flacco had come into the game. He'd come into the franchise, and he was going to turn this thing around. He was going to save the Cincinnati Bengals until Joe Burrow got back. I don't know. There was something in the air. Even here in Northeast Indiana, there was something in the air that made that move feel special. And then the defense comes up and they make a play. They stop Jordan Love, which was not easy to do. They get a turnover off Jordan Love. And Jordan Love, I believe that was either his first or second interception of the year. He has not thrown a ton of interceptions this season. And the Bengals get it. You're like, oh my gosh. The Bengals are going to come into this game. They're going to win. They're going to be like, they're going to win. They're going to steal this game from the Packers because the Packers, FanDuel had them as 14.5 favorites. So you come into the game and you're excited. You're like, yeah, this is going to happen. This is going to be it. And then what does Zach Taylor do? He runs the ball 3 times. They traded for a quarterback. They had all the momentum on their side. I think that whole stadium was like, oh my gosh, the Bengals are going to come in and do this. This is crazy. And then he ran the ball 3 times. The Bengals didn't do anything with the turnover. They completely missed their opportunity to do something with the turnover. And then all of a sudden there was just this massive shift of all the momentum, and it went right back to the Packers. The Bengals had it. The Bengals had their moment. And for whatever reason, Zach Taylor decided, instead of coming out, first down and just letting Joe Flacco just fling it to Jamar Chase, make a statement that says the Cincinnati Bengals are here. The Cincinnati Bengals are more than just one guy. The Cincinnati Bengals are going to rally for Joe Burrow. Cincinnati Bengals are going to be contenders in December when Joe Burrow comes back. They didn't say that. They said, oh, yeah, we traded for this guy, but he's just going to hand off the ball. And I said on Twitter, I could do that. I very rarely say that sincerely and think to myself, yeah, I could honestly do that. But I do believe I could snap the ball, catch it, and just hand it to Chase Brown. Hand it to Chase Brown. Third down. Oh, we'll do it on this side. Why? What's going on? The whole first half, they played scared. And I don't know why they played scared, because it felt like the Bengals were going to win this game in coming into it off that first drive off the Packers. The defense was playing very well. Shout out DJ Turner. He played amazing. Why are we playing scared football coming into the Green Bay game? Especially when you came off the Detroit game and you were down, 13 points, and you're kicking an onside kick with 5 minutes left in the game, and you're saying we were going to win that game. You believed in the team with 13 minutes left, or 5 minutes left in a 13-point game against the Detroit Lions, but you didn't believe in the team with almost 60 minutes left after you just got an interception with a veteran quarterback that you traded for, that you said in press conferences all week you were impressed with, who you believe could throw the ball, who you believe could lead this team. No, you started the game handing off the ball. That's scared football. That is not good football, Zach. And I know it's easy to sit right here and just say all of this. I get that. I get that it's easy to sit in a chair and sit and watch an armchair quarterback and all that stuff. I understand. I am not arguing that. But when you can watch the game week in and week out and point to a specific instance in every single game where if things had just gone a little different, you would have likely won that game. And it's not something that the defense of the other team even did. It's not something that the Packers did. The Packers did not do anything amazing. They were just like, okay, you're going to run the ball against us for some reason? Okay, we'll just stop that. You're not good at that. It's not like we're a running team either. It's not like that's the Bengals' strength. We're handicapping ourselves. Every single week, we're handicapping ourselves by insisting on these uncreative run play calls, which handicaps not only the run game, but it also handicaps the rest of the team because you can't pass the ball because you don't have the ball. And then people get on the defense and they're like, oh, well, the defense is bad. They suck. They can't do it. The defense has been playing fairly well these last few weeks. If you watch the games, don't look at the stats and the points let up. And I'm not saying they're great. I'm not saying they're phenomenal. I'm not saying that at all. The defense has created turnovers. The defense has created some 3-and-outs. They created 3-and-outs against the Lions. And the defense has made plays. The Bengals offense has not capitalized on those instances. That is a problem. It's even more of a problem when the Bengals offense goes 3-and-out after the defense has been out there for 5 minutes, and then they only get like a 30-second break. I mean, it then in the fourth quarter, everyone's like, well, the Bengals defense is so slow. Yeah, because they're exhausted. They've been out there the entire game. They're trying to go full speed. They're trying to give you everything they have, but they've played 50 minutes of a 60-minute game. I don't blame them for being tired. I'm actually more surprised that there haven't been more locker room drama coming out where the defense is saying, hey, guys, help us. We're trying to help you. Last year, it was the defense isn't helping the offense. And now this year, it feels like the defense is doing everything to me because the offense can't get it going. However, in the second half, they let Joe Flacco wide open. They let him throw over here, throw over here. He's throwing to Jamar Chase. He's throwing under to Mike Gesicki. He's throwing to Tanner Hudson. He's throwing to Drew Sample just for fun. He let it rip. It was like, this is why we traded for Joe Flacco. Imagine if we had done that in the first quarter. The Bengals defense held the Packers to 3 points. 3. Bengals offense hasn't put up, I believe they haven't put up any points in a first half in 4 games. You can't do that. You can't do that. What was the score at halftime? Let me pull this up here. It was 10-0. Packers. 10-0. That should have been a way closer game. There was no reason why the Bengals shouldn't have had any points in the first half. Even if you can go into halftime 7-10 with 1 touchdown, that's a lot better than 10-0. They honestly probably should have led halftime, but they didn't. Because they played scared on offense, not on defense, on offense. Now, Truss sent me some stats that he wanted me to share. So he is talking about Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers records on Thursday Night Football. So Mike Tomlin, who's the Steelers head coach, has a 2-8 record on road games on Thursday Night Football. So he specified that the road record is particularly poor against AFC North rivals, where the Steelers are 0-6 under Tomlin. So on the road against AFC North rivals, the Steelers have never won a Thursday Night Football game under Tomlin. Okay, that's a pretty poor record, and kind of shocking to me, honestly, that the Steelers have never won a AFC North road game. Because like they faced the Bengals on Thursday Night Football, so I'm like, okay. Anyway, 0-6 under Tomlin. However, Aaron Rodgers is 13-6 all time on Thursday Night Football. So what we've got here is we're going to have a difference of coaching versus your playmakers. So we got the Icy Hot Bowl tonight. Aaron Rodgers versus Joe Flacco. And I think it's kind of interesting to hear that stat because he just sent me that information a few minutes ago. So I don't know what that says about Mike Tomlin. Does that say that this team hasn't been prepared in the past against AFC North rivals on the road? That's kind of where I'd have to go with that. However, Aaron Rodgers has been in the league for so long that I'm also kind of shocked he's only played 19 Thursday Night Football games. But anyway, he's been in the moment before. He's been here before. He knows how to prepare himself with these short turnaround games. I wonder what Joe Flacco's all-time Thursday Night Football record is real quick. Let's look into that. So Joe Flacco has a 13-game record. He's played 13 games on Thursday Night Football, but he has not. It won't tell me what his record is in those games for some reason. Oh well, I don't know how to find that because Google is being uncooperative. But it is interesting. So I hate saying this. I really do. I just don't know how the Bengals win tonight because the Steelers have just played such better football. They looked way better against the Browns than what I thought they were going to, even though it was the Browns. I get it was the Browns. But the defense, they held up. They held me away from getting $300 because I had money on Harold Fannin Jr. getting a touchdown, and then he had 2 drops in the end zone. But they held the Browns to 9 points. And the Steelers offense put up 23 points. And that's how you win those football games. And I don't know that the Bengals offense can come out and put up enough points to overcome what the Bengals defense can. Because here is the other frustrating thing about Zach Taylor. It seems like every week he is relearning what he learned the week before. So he should have learned, or we should have learned together as a group, as a team, as a fan base, that you need to come out and make a statement early in the game against these playoff contender teams. The Lions, the Packers, the Steelers. However, I cannot confidently say that the Bengals will come out and pass immediately. It doesn't even have to be first down. Just pass on second down. If you're dead set on running the ball on first down for some reason. But you have to pass at some point. You have to pass the ball to open up this offense. This offense is built around passing. Dalton Reisner looked great when he was in for Dylan Fairchild. Joe Flacco looked poised. You've got these veterans on the line that are going to help these rookies, hopefully. And Orlando Brown Jr. looked slow, but ultimately Joe Flacco knew when to throw the ball away, so it wasn't that big of an issue. I think he only got sacked once. That's huge for the Bengals. But Zach Taylor isn't going to learn that. He is going to come out and do the exact same thing he did the week before. And he's going to have a press conference, and he's going to say, oh, yeah, it was my fault. We've got to be better, or I've got to be better. It's like, okay, yes. That's fine. It would be different if, we saw consistent growth, but it feels stagnant, and that's the issue. This Steelers defense isn't going to let you just kind of be free and run around. I don't feel confident in this team right now as a Bengals fan, mainly because I don't feel confident in the coaching. I feel confident in a lot of the players. I really like a lot of the players. I think they have a way better team than what people realize, but it's because they're held back by the coaches. Another weird thing that happened against the Packers that kind of, I think, shocked most people was Logan Wilson got benched, which Logan Wilson has been the middle linebacker for the Bengals forever. He was the 3rd round pick in 2020. He, was big in the Super Bowl run. He's been a leader on this team. He's getting older. He's going to be 30 next season, I think. So he is getting older, getting a little bit slower. But I don't know that I saw enough to justify benching him. He got benched for fourth round rookie Barrett Carter out of Clemson, who I'm really excited about. But to take one of your leaders off the field, a guy who has worn the green dot, who has been a leader on a very, very young defense at times and a struggling defense at times, and to just bench him. And even Logan Wilson, he seemed confused by it. He didn't seem to understand why it was happening. A reporter asked him about it. He said, I have no animosity towards Barrett. I told myself, like, whenever this happens, if I'm going through adversity, I'm going to handle this the right way so that I can look myself in the mirror and be proud. I really liked his response to the whole situation, but he also they asked him like, well, why do you think this? Why do you think this happened? Did you feel like you weren't playing well? And he said, I don't know. And he specifically said Zach didn't think so. Zach didn't think I was playing well. So that did Al make that call? Did Al Golden, the Bengals defensive coordinator, make that call? It doesn't sound like it, or at least he wasn't the one who told Logan Wilson. Sounds like Zach told him that. So is Zach now making desperation moves in an attempt to save his job? So he's benching the older players to try and get the younger players some snaps to see if any of them can be, steals. I just did not understand the Logan Wilson benching. I know that he's had some missed tackles, but so has Barrett Carter. So it's like, I don't know what you really gain here. Maybe some speed, maybe they saw something in practice. I don't know, but I'll be interested to see what happens tonight because I don't think Logan Wilson played a single defensive snap in the second half, and he was playing on special teams a lot. And that would be interesting because Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt were both guys that the Bengals decided to pay instead of Jesse Bates. So we'll see what happens in the future here, what their plan is with the linebackers. But wow, that one was a shock to the world as well, I think. I'd love the Bengals to win tonight, but their coaching just seems so desperate right now that I don't know that they actually can. All right. Next thing I want to talk about here is Brian Callahan. So Brian Callahan, the former Tennessee Titans head coach, former Bengals offensive coordinator, has been fired. He is the first coach of the season to be fired. And I don't think anyone was all that shocked, to be honest. I mean, when you're rookie first overall pick is out there talking smack about the team's going to make some decisions. And the decision was to move on from Brian Callahan. I think he had like a 4-win record as well. So I liked Brian Callahan with the Bengals. I thought he was an okay offensive coordinator. I don't really know. It's hard. The Bengals, it's hard to tell like how much of it's Zach, how much of it's Dan Pitcher, how much of it was Brian Callahan. But needless to say, he wasn't good head coach. The team seemed confused. The team seemed lost. They didn't have a ton of identity. But I think Mike Vrabel, who was asked about this, obviously he's now the New England Patriots head coach, but was once the Tennessee Titans head coach. Mike Vrabel pointed out something really important, and that was basically that there is a human element to this that we forget. Reporters asked him about reaching out to Brian Callahan, and Mike Vrabel confirmed he did reach out to Brian Callahan. And I know, again, it's really easy to sit here and, say, Zach Taylor should be fired. Zach Taylor should be fired. Zach Taylor isn't doing this. Brian Callahan should be fired. Brian Callahan isn't doing this. It's easy to sit there as fans. You get frustrated. But I think Mike Vrabel, and I recognize that in myself as well, so I'm not calling out anyone specifically here. But I think Mike Vrabel really did a good job of calling fans out and reminding them, like, hey, like, I get it. Like, you get frustrated as fans when your team isn't playing well. You put a lot of like emotional investment, financial investment into these teams, but you got to remember, like, a lot of these coaches have kids that are in schools that have friends, and then they get fired and they have to go somewhere else. And it's like there is a human element to that. So I think that is something that we need to do a better job of remembering as fans. Yeah, I don't really know what that looks like either, because there is a balance there. Like, you have to be able to say, like, the team isn't performing well, the coaching isn't performing well, and also, like, they're still a human, right? So there is that balance. And I'm not quite sure what that looks like. It's an interesting kind of philosophical question to ponder, but I did like the call out from Mike Vrabel. However, I also think that the Bengals should go after Brian Callahan's dad, Bill Callahan, who is one of the best offensive line coaches the NFL has seen. He's probably the best offensive line coach in the NFL. And he resigned from the Titans because he was like, "You've just fired my son." And he was, I think, like 3 seasons ago when the Cleveland Browns were really good in terms of O-line. He was their O-line coach. So Bill Callahan knows how to create an O-line. The Cincinnati Bengals should go after Bill Callahan. Their son has already played for them. He's familiar with the administration. I think if we're talking about a team that's trying to, do whatever it can to stay afloat right now, go after Bill Callahan. If he doesn't want to coach, at least have him in an administrator or some sort of like advisory role to Scott Peters. Because I do still like Scott Peters. I think Scott Peters is cool. But I would like to see Bill Callahan in there helping out the Bengals. I think that would be a huge plus for this team. But it's getting rocky here. Yeah. So, like I said, me and Chus, our schedules just really didn't sync up. Usually this isn't the type of thing we do. Usually it's both of us here on the full episodes. This is only going to be a 30-minute episode because of, just the nature of talking by myself to no one about kind of just abstract ideas. But hopefully next week we'll be able to do a full episode again. Shouldn't be a problem. I appreciate you guys for stopping by and watching this video later on if you do. I appreciate everyone who stopped in on the live stream for a second or two. And go ahead and give this a follow, a comment, a like. Let me know who you think is going to win tonight, the Bengals or the Steelers. It's going to be rough. I'm going to watch. I'm going to root for the Bengals, but it's going to be hard. But again, thank you guys so much for stopping by. And until next time, go do something nice for someone.